And people from outside can also join too. So, okay. Hi, Jonathan. Can you guys see the participants? Can you see who's here? You can. Okay, great. Hey, Chris. Hi, Jonathan. Nice to see you guys.
Hi.
Hi. We have some artists joining. This is so exciting.
I'm gonna
Welcome.
put on my stories and tell people we're live.
Yes. We are live for the first episode of the Sandbox podcast with Big Ass Kids co-founders, myself, Carolyn Ortiz, and Leroy Benrose, and our marketing guru, Melissa Chaile, aka Melissa Sweets. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're super excited to kick the series off. We've never hosted a podcast before, so excuse us if we, kind of figure our steps out, but we'll get through it. So, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We would love to know as we go through this episode about your career journey, how you started, where you currently are, where you want to go, your experiences in music, what working with music artists and labels looks like for you, and advice you have for working in music. Right?
Love it. Thank you so much, Carolyn and Leroy, for having me. I've always been excited about this project that you guys started a while back. It was a dream for you guys, and here we are. So, congrats to you guys for the growth. And this is really cool what you guys are doing this podcast. I know, is this the first one?
This is the very first one.
I feel but yeah, no, this is great. And thank you for taking the time to speak to me about what I've been through. I know that you guys initially started this because of having people like me and artists that need people like me to help them on their career journey. So, you're slowly but surely building a community. I know that I've been able to get a couple interviews because of this. I've been able to also network with a lot of new people. I've worked with a couple of artists too because of this. Like, there's one in Seattle that I had the pleasure of working with, which was really cool because I had never worked with
Shout
someone.
out to Liv.
Yes, shout out to Liv. So I mean, what you guys are doing is amazing, and I'm happy to be here and talk a little bit about myself, and
Thank you
get
so
to know
much.
anybody.
Yeah, Leroy, we started the playground, like Melissa said, because we have such an engaged community of music artists, right? And we have such a small team that we weren't able to take all the work on. So we would just naturally pass work on to our friends like Melissa, who had bandwidth and were able to work with artists that we could really trust. But because we had so many projects and so many artists, we had to kind of formalize this process, right? And that's how the playground started. Do you want to talk about, in your opinion, why we created the playground and how important it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for me, collaboration is always important. I think that's where the best ideas come about when you really brainstorm with other colleagues and you work on projects that you want to work on and that you're passionate about. And for us, like we always say, collaboration is greater than competition. There's no keeping us. And I think as people started seeing the work that we were doing, that the result of that was just us getting more work and more artists reaching out to us for more work. So for us, it was just a natural thing to bring in our colleagues, and it wasn't necessarily built with the idea of, with the state of the industry and things of that nature. I think it was just more of let's work with people, and as things progress, we start the changes in the industry, the different layoffs, the consolidations, and the timing kind of, in a weird way, aligned where the work we were getting, we were now able to pass it off and connect with other people who were actually now looking for work versus just wanted to work on a specific project. So I think it was the evolution of, us dealing with our bandwidth, and then us also recognizing the industry and where it's headed, and us bringing in quality people and people like Melissa, who've been in music for as long as we have, providing value to artists. So for us, it's like, well, here's an opportunity here for us to work together and stick together and empower each other to work on different projects. So I think that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, and I love the word evolution And I'd love to get into, Melissa, your evolution, right? Can you, one of the reasons I wanted you as our first guest on our very first episode is because your career has evolved and has hit so many different facets of working in music. You started in radio, and you've hosted your own podcast, and you've had your own shows, and you've been freelancing, but you also worked at labels and had full-time jobs, and you've worked with independent artists, and you've worked with major artists. You've worked with hip hop artists domestic to the US. You've worked with Latin artists that you had to cross over into the US. And your experience and your expertise is so vast. And I think artists and professionals have so much to learn from you. So can you tell us about your journey?
I'm just laughing because you giving that explanation, I'm already tired. It's a lot. Like, we all know working in the music industry is tough, right? Being an artist in the music industry is tough, right? I think I've had to do it all because it's just, that's my journey. You know, I never would want to take no for an answer. And when one door closes, I would figure out a way to open another one, you know. And it was always like, I was always determined. Like, I don't know, it's like something in me, it's like a fire. And I know you guys feel me when it's like a fire within you that, you know, you're going to do something, and you want to do something big, and you're not going to stop until you keep going. And it's just like, I don't know, it's always been like that for me. Like, I wanted to be like an Oprah and Angie Martinez back in the day. That was like my first goal, right? But as you keep going, the goals change, priorities change, right? I know I've been a single mom and had my kids since I first started my first radio internship. You know, that was the first thing. Like, I was pregnant. I graduated from college, and I said, shit, what am I going to do now? But I knew I always wanted to follow my dream. And I'm like, I had an opportunity because I come from the Jersey area. I knew a lot of DJs, and they were starting like online radio at the time, right? This is like literally when my son was born, 2007. And I was like, well, you know, let me try it. And I started working with the DJs from the local town and working on online station. And I saw the opportunity to work on social media too, because it had just been starting. I don't even think Twitter was out, or Instagram, but we had MySpace, we had Facebook. And I've always been very opinionated and like to talk and stuff like that. So I just started doing it, you know, and that was before anybody else. And like years later, I've had friends that have been like, Mel, you were like the first influencer back in the day because you were on it, you know. And I just kept multiplying that. I met Pretty Lou at the station, who Pretty Lou, if a lot of people don't know, was part of the Terror Squad. He was like the hype man, you know, and the host and stuff, and was doing a lot of like, you know, working the records for them. And he wanted to do radio too, and we just kind of worked together and started Front Stage Radio. And that led us into Brooklyn, because that's when Urban Latino Radio started, PNC Radio, and a lot of Brooklyn online stations. So it was a thing. And then we had A-List Radio, where a lot of, you know, radio personalities and DJs got their start, you know. So I was a part of all of that. And then I also met a girl that also had the same ambition as me. She was Palestinian and working with Angie Martinez at the time at Hot 87 with Drewski, right? And I knew Drewski from the Jersey scene, right? And, you know, Drewski's big on giving indie artists a helping hand, you know, and he's been one of those DJs that really put them on the map. So we all kind of just got together and started this blog. Then we were like, we want to be the all-female hip-hop blog and run like a sorority. And we were called Strawberry Blunt, you know, and it was really
I love that name.
Yeah, you know, and it was a double conundrum, right? Like, we were smart, sassy girls that spoke their minds, right? But we knew weed was big in the music industry, especially hip hop, you know? So it was catchy and it blew up. And, you know, we had all the DJs paying us to go host the club. So I learned a lot of that, the business of hosting and promoting and partying, and working with the DJs hand in hand. I started hosting with the DJs. I would get on the mic. Where are my single ladies at? You know, I did Latin events because I knew Spanish too. Always trying to do the bilingual thing. I started working at La Mega, which was 97.9 FM, one of the biggest Spanish stations, and always trying to do both things. I had a day job. I was doing social media for a real estate agency in Hoboken. during the day from like 10 a.m. to 1, 3 p.m. I was helping all the real estate agents with their social media. And then I was going to the radio station in Brooklyn at night. And I was waking up at 3 in the morning to go to La Mega and do the Vacilon morning show from 4 a.m. to 7 to 10 a.m. So this is obviously why I was a lot younger, so I had a lot more energy. And I was raising my kid, it was just like, it was just a matter of go, go, go. I didn't know anything less, and then the blog blew up. A lot of the girls got opportunities through the music industry because of that. I got a lot of opportunities doing corporate. Now I had LG and Leica and these big corporate brands hearing about us because we were blowing up the blog, and it was one of the first all-female hip-hop blogs. So now I'm getting to work. Now I get to work in the corporate side. And I knew I wasn't really, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't making money in radio. There wasn't a lot of money in that. I was getting paid maybe $10 an hour, which was nothing. And I couldn't survive. So I had to get a day job. And one of that was in digital marketing. Even though it wasn't the music scene, I knew eventually I would get into it if I kept this job, if I did well in digital marketing, because then you could always transfer those skills into the music industry. It's just a matter of who you know. So I kept networking. I kept meeting people. I was everywhere. I would literally go to 4 or 5 events a day sometimes, just going out there, meeting people, shaking hands, kissing babies. I was
that was the epitome of the blog era, right? In New York City, like 4 or 5 events was normal. You would start with the one that had the food, right? That would pass out the appetizers and had the open bar from like 6 to 8, 7 to 9. Go get your appetizers because we're all broke, so we needed some free food and drinks. And then you would go to like kind of like the mid-level one where like, oh, we can still get in, we're cool enough. And then you would try and sneak into like the one that nobody could really get into, but you could talk your way in, right? Yeah. And it was just like, that's how like 4 nights a week, right?
It was. And then we threw a showcase. My friend Hala, who I started the blog with, had her connects with Hot and with DJ Enough. I had my connects with Maya the Bee, with This Is 50. She used to host that because I interned for them, for a little while. So we just combined forces and threw a showcase. We were one of the first to have like Nitty Scott perform, Smoke DZA, and I'm really proud of that because it's something that was really hard to put together. We gave a lot of indie artists opportunities to perform and show and have a platform. Remember Dunk Exchange? We did that with the sneaker stuff. And it was just a lot that we were doing. And I loved every single moment. That was probably one of my biggest highlights in the music industry, was having that blog. We even had MTV knock on our doors. We did a pilot. They filmed me and the kid and my son and my life and working in the industry, but they wanted us to, be against each other and show us drunk and fighting and stuff like that. Cause it was right after Jersey Shore. So they wanted us to be like a female version of Jersey Shore. So we turned it down. I'm actually very glad that we did because, that content stays out there forever. But, we kept moving. And, from there, I started getting opportunities in the music industry. I started working at Tidal when they first launched. This is now 2016. And my job there was to turn the negative sentiment around into a positive one. So I helped a lot with the program Tidal Rising, which was working with indie artists and showing that we were the platform that was paying more than the other ones, So we did a lot with that, and I got to do Tidal X Jay-Z, Tidal X J. Cole when J. Cole first started. I did Tidal X Rihanna in LA. I did Tidal X Jeezy in Atlanta, and I was there in the war room taking care of tweets, making sure that we were constantly in real time and projecting all the commentary and stuff like that. So, that was another highlight. And then from there, it took a while before I got another label job. So
what did you do in between? I think right now I talk to a lot of freelancers that kind of are in that in-between stage, right? And that's really hard as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer. How do you get from one check to the next and you don't know where it's going? How do you keep yourself motivated, right? One of the things you said was that just do it. You just have to do it. And you have this spirit, this hustle spirit and mentality. What kind of advice would you give to our fellow professionals, freelancers, or even music artists that are in between checks? How do you stay motivated to keep going?
Well, I'll be completely upfront. I was in the running for an amazing job recently that you guys know about, and I thought I really was gonna get it, and it turns out they ended up going with someone else. But everything was there, the ingredients that I was gonna get the job, and it just didn't happen, and it broke my heart. And right now I'm in between, right? So here we are. You honestly, it's all about the relationships and the people that and being a genuine person. I think that although I've maybe had time in between, I find a way to help others, and
Mm.
that somehow comes back to me.
Yeah.
And I could be struggling and upset, but a friend will hit me up and be like, Mel, do you know someone that could help me get a job and do this? I'm like, yeah, I do, I'll connect you. And then I'll make the connection. I could be crying 5 minutes prior, but I'm gonna help. you know and then they get the opportunity, and then guess what, they remember that, and they bring it back. um you know
Kindness never goes unnoticed, and that's what I love about community. It's one of the things I love about the playground, and frankly, that's one of the things I look for when we vet freelancers. Are you a kind person? Are you a good human? Are you here to take advantage of artists and other professionals and just get what you can and take? Or are you going to participate in this community and give and care and be kind? That is 100% the sentiment of the playground. And again, one of the reasons we wanted you as our first guest, because you embody those qualities.
Thank you, Carolyn. I have interns. And it's something that I've always loved from the strawberry blunt days. Like, that was my favorite part, was being, kind of like a mentor to the girls. I was the oldest one at that time. I was like 26 when we first started. A lot of the girls were 19, 20, 21. I was like the mama bear, right? And I've always loved that, because I don't have any brothers or sisters. I'm the only child, so my friends are my family. And I've always been like, let me see how I can help you. And I think that has always been something, because I've had a lot of interns that I've mentored throughout the years, and they get into a position where they're able to help you then, and they remember things like that. And I just think that that's something that really helps me, even though, like, I may be upset. And then I also go to the gym. The gym has been honestly my depression reliever. It really helps mentally, because if you can do a set of threes with ab workouts carrying 45-pound weights, okay, you can do anything in life.
I mean, you gave birth, so
Exactly.
I feel like you can do anything. You're
Yeah.
a
So
whole,
it's
like, you push out a whole human.
And then I have a kid. I can't say for people that don't, but you look at your kid and you're like, dude, you have to do something. You can't just sit here on your ass crying.
Yeah.
You got to get up, you got to motivate, you got to show a good example, and show your kid that you can do anything. And I think that that's another thing. It's all a formula, right? Like, it all comes full circle. It's the gym, it's listening to positive affirmations, it's talking to people that make you feel good, it's reaching out and helping others, it's going and doing good stuff, and just trying and being with family. And so, it's a matter of all of that. And it is really hard. There's days that I want to I want to kill myself, but there's also other days that you're like, this is worth it, this is why I'm doing this.
Do you feel like being part of a community of like-minded people helps to uplift you? Like, are there ways in which, in music, you don't get a lot of community opportunities. You have friends, industry friends, or you have events you can show up at and kind of fill your spirit with good people and energy. But then you go home and, like, then you're kind of by yourself. So part of the playground is this community aspect. It's like being able to lean on people. Do you feel like that's super important, not just for professionals, but for artists too, to have a safe space to go to?
It's absolutely important. Shout outs to Max. I see that he's on here. That's probably one of my homies. And someone that I lean on to. I know that it's tough out here. We're both looking for jobs, and I think I lean on him a lot. He leans on me. You know, I try to help him when I can, and that's super important. I think that there's this stigma, and I know I've told you this before, where like you kind of feel ashamed that you're not working at the moment in some high level job, and it's just life, right? Because the perception is every artist is rich, the perception is every label person has money and is doing well, right? But that's not true. You know, we're all struggling, we're all working and trying to get to the next level. And you know, I think that there's that perception of you having to pretend that you are doing better than what you are, and that's just social media, right? You know, and I think that I try to, at least on my Instagram, show both sides. Like, we're not perfect, we're not all like, you know, doing it big. There are moments that aren't great. So I think that, you know, transparency is key, and I try to be that way, you know, but I do have that stigma and feeling sometimes that I'm like, damn, I can't tell people that I'm not working, you know, at a big big brand or big label, because then they're gonna look at me different, you know. But I've honestly, I've been working a lot on myself about that, because I got laid off from BMG in January, you know. So a lot of people don't know that. I still get people hitting me up and saying, "Oh, Mel, how's BMG going?" And I'm like, "It's going great." You know, there's no active projects right now, but you know, for the most part, I've been able to sustain myself, and you know, I've gotten projects thanks to you guys, you know, and been able to use my connects and have people that refer me and still check in with people, and you know, I think that I'm very lucky for that, and I'm grateful for every little thing.
Yeah. You know, I talk to so many freelancers. I think every week I average about, depending on the week, between 15 to 25 on a phone call. That doesn't include messages or emails. And even the people who are sustaining, who have, you know, frequent income and frequent gigs, still feel like there's this anxiety, right? And that's kind of one of the things I want to break through, and hopefully as we continue to have these conversations on the podcast, it becomes normal that people understand that the journey of a music professional sticking to music is not easy. It's not what you see on social media is so unreal. It's difficult. It's really, really hard. And having a community of people that you can lean on and say, hey, anybody have an opportunity? Hey, can I just offer thought, brainstorm with you, and continue working in music? I don't think money equates to value, human value. I think capitalism has made us feel that way. That's a whole different podcast. But human value, it does not equate to how much money you have in your bank account or where your check is coming from. It's who you are as a human being. So I hope that you know that you are an incredible human being, and that here in the playground, we will support you in any way that we can. And that goes for everyone in the playground, right, Leroy?
It's very rare. I think we are very rare, you know, and I think that's another reason why somehow, some way, I always find my way in this industry, because, you know, everybody is unique. You know, there's a reason why you're here, we're here, whatever, right? And I don't think that there's a lot of people that understand that, you know, genuine goes a long way. I know it may be taking me a little bit longer, right? But I'm doing it my way, you know. And something with you, Carolyn, I think that is awesome to mention. And Leroy, like, I remember when you guys were, you know, talking about this idea a year or two ago, and you know, how much you wanted to really help artists and help people like us, and seeing the lack of support for people like us and for artists that are just starting out, and you really want to help people. And you know, it may be taking you a little bit longer and stuff, but you've got people that are going to support you. Like, I'm here, you know, whatever you need. I wave, you know, the back flag.
You've been with us since day one. We appreciate you so much.
Because you need to know, you know, and like it's fine. Like I think that doing these things. Like, I would love to, this is the first episode, but like, I'm really liking this, and I hope that I
Wow,
can
let's get your own radio show.
in the future, and maybe maybe me and Max can interview some artists together. I know you heard that, Max. So
Listen, Mels, you've seen how quickly the playground has evolved. So you might go ahead and start a whole new thing, a whole new radio, segment of the playground. But like, kind of like you said, I mean, look, I've learned that even working on the playground as a startup is very similar to, managing and working with a developmental artist. Like, it's no one's gonna overnight. It still requires getting into studios. It requires cutting demos. It requires, sharing the music to people. And it's just the same thing here. It's like when you have something great, it's just about consistency. It's about, putting in the work. There's no shortcuts. Of course, would it be nice if we woke up and there's a million users? I mean, of course, but that's just not the reality. It's just like an artist. You're not going to wake up with 10 million streams. You're not going to wake up with 10 million followers. You're going to have that first follower, then the second follower, then the 10th follower, then the 1,000th follower. It's the same thing with any kind of startup. It's just laying the brick by brick and having people like you, Melissa, who believe in the vision, and us helping each other and having the community understand that that's what we're here for. We're here to educate. We're here to also learn. We're here to provide resources, share the resources, and artists need support just as much as professionals do. So that's one thing that we've learned throughout this journey. Is like we're all kind of in this together, whether you're a creative or a professional. All looking for resources. We're all looking for opportunities. So why not build this super space where we all kind of coexist and create opportunities for each other?
Yeah, well said.
And
Mel, I'm wondering, so being an entrepreneur in music, a music professional, like Leroy said, it's very much like being an artist, a developing artist, where like you have to build your own stuff up, right? But then that kind of requires patience from artists too, right? And I think also, like you said, we are rare in how much we care and how human we are, and I pray that we always remain that way. But what I want to talk about is how do we kind of shift our industry, right? One of my goals with the playground is to recreate a narrative of what working in music looks like and feels like, and the relationship between a music artist, a record label, and music professionals, right? 3 different entities. So if you're the professional and you're getting hired, what do you want artists to know? What do you want labels to know when they are reaching out to you and looking to hire you, right? Like the company that you were interviewing with, you went through 4 sets of interviews. You talked to like 6 different people. That was insane. And this isn't the first, like you and I have been talking about your journey for over a year now. Like you've had several of these kind of interview trajectories where you've kind of gone through 1, 2, 3, 4 interviews and didn't get it. That's so mentally draining. It's time, right? Like that's your resources. Or you work with artists, and I've worked with artists and labels where they're super excited in the beginning and I need to hire you right away. And you go through and give them all of these ideas to make sure they understand that you're the right fit to work with them. But then they're like, oh, actually my budget is a fraction of what I first said, or actually I'm not in the space to hire you right now. Or this has to wait, right? And it's so frustrating and it's mentally draining. And I just don't think that people understand how mentally draining it is for professionals to have to go through all of that time and that effort. So what do you want to tell people? Like, what do you want people to know when they are looking to hire? How prepared should they be? What questions should they have up front? Should they just inquire? And if they are just inquiring, how much of an inquiry is appropriate versus inappropriate? What's your experience there?
I mean, I think things that I've gone through with the interview process, it's just sharpened my skills even more. I think every time that I'll be upfront, I had an interview with TikTok, right? The beginning of the year, literally as soon as I got laid off from BMG. And it was a music partnerships position based out of Miami. And I felt really strongly about it. How I was able to get that interview when there was like 3,000 applicants. I had been joining in on a bunch. TikTok has like these career events where you join in on live and you can, they do a Zoom and you can ask a bunch of questions, but it was for tech people. I had joined anyways. I was like, I don't care. I'm still going to be able to meet someone, and I was able to get the email of the HR person. I saw the position open up on LinkedIn. I emailed the HR person. I'm like, look, I'm in Miami. I have label experience. I have everything you guys need. They said, fine. They actually responded and sent me an interview. Great. When I got on the call, it was kind of weird because, it was a Latin position, but the person that was interviewing me was head of Latin, but he was Asian. So I couldn't really connect with him. I couldn't and I think that was my fault. I didn't prepare enough. I didn't know that it was going to be him. I was completely caught off guard. So that when I saw that, I was like, okay, that was my bad. I couldn't connect with him. It didn't happen. Cool. The second interview that I got, it was for Bad Bunny's label, Rimas. I was really excited about that. I get on the interview process. It was through Zoom. The guy showed up and connected and then disconnected immediately after. I was so excited, right? And I'm like, what happened? It was through WhatsApp. The interview, like not through WhatsApp, but like the way we were scheduling things was all through WhatsApp. So I already felt like a little red flag because of that. And then when I'm sitting there for the Zoom, the guy comes in and shows his face, muted, and then immediately signs off. And I'm like, damn, did I do something wrong? But then when I communicate with the HR lady through WhatsApp, she's like, oh, he said to give him a few minutes. He'll be right back. I waited an hour. He never showed up.
Wow.
So then I thought something was wrong with me.
That lack of professionalism.
It was a huge lack of professionalism. And especially I spoke to my friend about it and they were like, yeah, no, Mel, you did nothing wrong. You tried. And you don't want to work there anyways. And then when I got an offer, even though I didn't interview, but they wanted me to move to Puerto Rico for less than half of what I was making. And then it was just really unprofessional. And and it sucks because I feel like I'm not trying to talk crap about the label, but it's just the reality of what happened to me and my experience. Mm-hmm. So that's that. The third interview, it's just been so many. I've definitely better prepared. The best interview I've had though was the one that most recently was with Sound Exchange. And what I loved was, the interaction I had. I think don't make it an interview, guys. Make it a conversation, right? Let's talk about, hey, what are you doing today? What's going on with you? And I think that's what really made me set out from the rest, because I was like, oh, my son's in a wrestling camp and I'm trying to schedule all these things. So it's been a crazy time. And we connected immediately because he's like, oh my God, you have a son? I have a son too. I've been thinking about putting him in wrestling. Cool. Immediately, that's where it started, and we had a great back and forth. He stayed on for an hour talking to me, and he got to know me, got to know what I am, what I'm like. And I think that those are the best interviews, where they actually are interested in you and what you do. He asked me a question that not a lot of people ask. He said, what kind of boss would you like?
I love that question. What was your answer?
And I told him, I was like, I want a mentor. I want someone that is a friend, but also, there's boundaries, but that we have a good back and forth, and he listens to my ideas, and recommendations. And, I obviously have to prove myself and stuff like that, but, that we're able to go back and forth and be a good relationship, that I somebody that I can learn from, I don't want to also be in a room where I'm, the smartest person. I want to be able to learn from you,
Yeah.
So I really liked that question, and it was something that was great. So, and I think, if you don't get the job that you really want, if it doesn't happen, everybody always tells you, well, it wasn't meant to be, it's their loss anyways. God has something better and bigger for you. No, I'm still upset, and I'm going to be upset for 24 hours. So let me be upset. And then when I come back the next day, it'll be better. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's always good, like if you win something, celebrate it, but then go back and keep working. When
Yeah.
you lose something, feel sad about it, let it rock. And then the
Mhm.
next day, it's a new day. That's how I roll.
Yeah, I love that he humanized you, that he talked to you about being a human being and what you have going on. And I think that's, again, something that our industry might have lost along the way is the human element of working in music. It's just kind of like you're just expected to do it and just kind of be available. Like even this morning, you were like, shit, this label just scheduled a call with me at 12:30. We might have to cut this in half and they won't reschedule it. And it's like, the respect of time, right? Or like there's a label right now that we are kind of talking to that's like, oh, we need this really big thing in 10 days from now and we need you to make it happen. And it's just like, let's plan here, right? Let's think about this. And I hear this a lot from young professionals and my own experience working in music. And Leroy, I know this happens to you all the time, right? Which drives me nuts because I want your time too. So I'm like, okay, we have to make last minute adjustments here. But it's like, can we give consideration to the professionals that we want to hire, right? Like, can we like maybe work with them, talk to them, strategize with them, and create this timeline? But I don't know how realistic that is with music, and I think that's why
You
it's
know
so
what it is,
hard working in
It's
music.
just that these jobs are highly coveted, right? um a lot of people are going after the same jobs. I can't even tell you how me and my friends were all going for the same job. And it's like, they feel like we are replaceable.
Mhm.
And to some aspect, sure. Because it is a lot of us and there's very few jobs. So, but like you said, I do appreciate the people that take the time to humanize us. And that's where I want to be. Like, if I'm glad I didn't get any of those other jobs that I told you about, because I would have just been another number. And
Mhm.
I think that the universe is not giving me these jobs that I want, because I think there's a huge lesson to learn here. Like, who knows, maybe, you know being a freelancer is what I need right now you
Yeah,
know
and I think that's a really good point. And Leroy, you said something. I need you to read my mind right now. You said something like there's a lot of jobs, but not a lot of work. What did you say?
You're on mute.
I can't hear you. It might be your headphones. But anyway, he said something like, right now there's a lot of jobs, but there's not a lot, right? Not a lot of work or something like that, or vice versa. Um, but I think the point is
There's
like
a
there
lot of
might
work, maybe not a lot of jobs.
something like that. I
Yeah.
need him to read my mind and tell me what he said. I don't remember. But the point is, there are millions of artists all around the world. Like there is no shortage of music artists, and yet it's so hard, and we're competing for the same jobs in music. And that's again another reason we started the playground. It's like, okay, great, work at a label, work at a company, but like there's all these artists that aren't represented by these companies, that aren't signed to labels, that are independent. And we know that independence is the route in which music is going. How do we create our own jobs? What does that look like? How do we take our power back and say, I'm not going to sit here and compete for the same job that everyone else is. I'm going to create my own space, right? And so, Mel, can you talk to us about how, as a freelancer, right? Because you've talked about like really just leaning in and going hard about doing your own thing. And I know you've created your own like one sheets and pricing things and your portfolio recently. What does that feel like getting started on your entrepreneurial journey?
um at first it's kind of like, I think it's a lot harder to go that route than it is to get a job.
Hmm.
Even though I've gone through a lot in order to have the jobs that I've had or whatever, it's easy. You go to work, you get assigned, you work with a team, your deliverables, you have deadlines that are already set in place, right? When you're working at a job. But when you're working for yourself and trying to get your own money in, it's like you got to discipline yourself. You got to,
Mhm.
and I think that mentally that's been a struggle for me. because it's like, oh, well, I've got to do it myself. And it's just like, oh, I got to get up and set the pricing and create my own portfolio and reorganize my price sheet again and do all this and set up these meetings. And it's just, it's a lot harder to be disciplined for yourself than it is to, at least for me, I don't know, but it's easier for me to help others than it is to help myself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No,
and
I understand that.
Yeah, and it's something that I'm really working on, because it's like, why do I go so hard for everybody else and I don't go hard for myself?
Yeah.
You know? And that's some real shit. I think I've cursed already, but whatever. You know, and I think that that's what I've been working on this whole time. And I think that that's why the universe is not letting me get hired. And why I've been so close, because it's like, no, girl, you need to keep working on yourself. You need to keep pushing for yourself. You need to create a brand for yourself. So right now, you know, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think you, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think you would be great at it. You know,
I've got two interns right now that are amazing girls, Latinas as well. I love them to death. They've been really like invested in learning, and you know, we're putting out content on my page. You know, they want to start interviewing people. They go to Baruch and Syracuse. And one of them is the president of the Dominican chapter that they have. Nice. So we're going to start working on that. I'm going to put some artists in there. You know, there might be opportunities there that I'll bring for you guys to bring artists in and perform at their events. You know, so we're doing stuff like that, and we're starting off small, and you know, little things like that. And I'm starting to maybe open up the management window where I'm helping artists as well in that sense. And I really want to focus on the bilingual aspect, because it's so near and dear to me. And, you know, I've thought about management a little bit. I just want to get, you know, a little bit more into a routine before I really take on something. Because, like, managing is like having a kid, you know? So I'm waiting for my kid to go to college so that I could have another one. Do you know what I mean?
Leroy, are you back? Can you? No, we can't hear you now. Oh man, I'm just gonna have to read your mind. I think what he was gonna say is that yes, and no more kids for us either.
Right.
Management is like having a kid in it. Leroy is quite well versed in management. Shout out to him. I started as a manager, like way back in like 2008, and I was terrible. I was terrible because I wanted to get paid. Like, what do you mean? Like, I have to be on
that's
call
the thing,
24
you know,
hours
you
a
gotta
day.
have some other income in place.
No, hell no. I couldn't do it. I pivoted immediately into PR. Yeah. And I was like, nope, you guys got to pay me. I can't do this. And so shout out to the managers that are able to lean in and make that time without knowing if they're going to get paid or not. And then there was two.
And I think I've had an artist that like wants me to manage them. But, you know, I don't want to. And I know, like, it's really like, you're not going to do a good job if you don't want to manage someone that you don't believe in. Right. But I'm so happy to consult you to make you a better artist.
And that's what I think, for me, the trajectory of management is going, right? I talk to a lot of artists about management.
Mic check.
Wait, I think we heard you.
Oh, we're back?
Oh, you're back. Do you want to jump into this management conversation? I was just going to get into kind of the future of working as a manager with independent artists. What is that, Leroy? This is your expertise. What is your advice for music professionals that want to get into management right now?
That's a good question, man. I mean, that's one of the hardest. You have to be so selective because you have to understand going in is going to require a lot of time with a very little return of investment for your time in the short term. And there's also no guarantee that there's going to be return on investment in the long term.
Well, Leroy, we've heard those horror stories where you go hard for an artist, they blow up, and then they say deuces.
Well, look, I think the evolution of management, I mean, I wouldn't even call it the evolution because it's been happening now, and it's been happening over the last few years. I know there's great managers like Ty Bazin who manages Brent Fayez and those guys. And, you know, when I met with him a few years back, he was telling me how his structure of how he approaches management, and I agree with him. I think from at the end of the day, the artist is a business, right? Like that's their enterprise, that is their career, that is their business, right? As a manager, it's like when you're starting a restaurant. You have the chefs and you have all the people who make it happen, but then you also have the people who put in the money, the people who know how to operate it from the business side. You're going in as a partner, right? So artists, I think, a manager should approach management like a partnership, where they're 50-50 partners on the business, as long as as the artist, the way the artist will employ someone, or, will identify a partner. You have to find strategic partners that can bring value to your business. So for me, to me is the way to do it. The days of taking 20, I was just talking to an old colleague of mine who's been in management for a long time. And, the problem is even when things do pop off, 20% is, it's not sustainable, to live off of. And a lot of times
That's a great idea, Leroy.
20% is, it's not like you're putting in 20, you're getting 20% for, like, 5 hours a day. Sometimes it's a 24-hour a day job. You're on call. You got to be ready. You have to know what you have to be ready at all times. So the exchange of time to value, it's difficult, especially when artists are becoming more independent these days, right? And they're not getting the big checks or getting the big advances. Managers used to be good with getting 20% off the advance or the publishing deal. A lot of times it's like we're not taking big money because we're not giving up as many rights, which means the manager isn't getting the 50 grand, the 100 grand commission checks.
Right.
So for the manager, how is he going to survive? Because at the end of the day, artists need management, right? It's just part of the game. Like, artists are making the music, they're creative. A lot of them can do management type stuff for themselves, but in order to grow as a business, you need people to operate parts of your business. A manager is one of them. So the way I look at it, it's a 50-50 partnership. I'll invest my time, you do your part, I do my part, and we grow a business together, and we have equity in the business together. That's what I think the future of management is going to be. If not, it's already happened.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We have about 13 minutes left. I want to open up. See, does anyone have any questions for any of us, for Melissa, to see anyone in the chat? Melissa, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. I just learned how to use the chat function. Sorry, guys, I'm still new to this too.
Chaile, when you said earlier, it was a lot of jobs, not enough roles. That was
Thank you.
There we go.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of every artist need, but they need these resources, these services, but no one's hiring, right? We know these jobs exist, but no one's hiring. So that's one of the biggest issues we're seeing. So, where do these artists go to? The ones that suffer, the ones that get impacted negatively, are the artists who aren't getting the right infrastructure, the right support, the right prioritization of their music. So which is another reason why the playground exists. Is artists, as we say, I always steal this line from my friends at Indify, artists are founders. They're founders of their business. They should be able to curate and hire teams that are best fit for them, versus having to go somewhere. And, Melissa, I'm not sure if you ever dealt with this as a manager, but you sign a deal with an artist somewhere, and the person who signed you there, who you're really excited to work with, gets laid off or takes another job somewhere else. And now the artist is stuck there because their rights are tied up there. Right. So what founder of any business would want to be stuck in a situation like that, where I've given up equity of my music to get resources, the resources that I signed for are no longer there. Right. So for us, it's like, keep the same mentality of looking for resources. We need resources to grow, but curate them to fit your needs as the founder of your business. So that's what the playground stands for.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll be able to help you guys get paid, because we're also starting to explore some funding options. So one of the things and ways that the playground wants to support our freelance and our professional community is to be able to offer artists funding options. So now artists can come to the playground and get funding options so that they can hire people like you, Mel, and be able to pay for it. And you don't have to work for free, and you don't have to wait for a 20% check of I don't know when, how much that's going to come. And they can get the support that they need, because I think also what I hear from a lot of artists is like, I really, really, really need help. I really, really need a publicist. I really, really need a manager. But I am streaming 100 streams a month. Like, I have no money. I'm working so much. Or I'm kind of, I kind of have a day job, but most of my time goes to music. But I really need this help, but I don't have money to hire. And then you might get someone who might commit to you, because if you work in music, it's because you love artists, right? I've never spoken to one person who works in music that doesn't love music artists and understand the struggles of it. But then you get people to commit, but then they can only commit so long because they need to get paid, right? So we want to help kind of combat that and make sure that artists have some funding options so that they can hire you guys, because it's a really challenging landscape right now. But on that note, Mel, we only have a few minutes left. I'd love to know from you, what do you consider a success as a music professional?
A success in my career or for the art?
Like as a music professional in your career, because you say your journey's not over yet, right? And you're doing it your way. When are you going to feel like I found success?
Made it?
Good. Like you made it. Your mama, I made it moment.
Honestly, I've been working a lot on this because we don't give ourselves credit. I'm a Capricorn. I don't know. We're always like super ambitious and like it's never enough. That's how I've always felt for a very long time. But I'm starting now more than ever to realize that like I've already made it. You know, I may not be with the houses and the Benzes and the shit, right, that everybody projects on Instagram, but my son is doing well. Argentina won.
I might cause a stir right now in the chat.
You could have said, you could have, no matter who won that match, you would have been good though, right?
I would have still won, no, but you know, I'm a daddy's girl, and for me, like that made me really happy. I know my dad's happy up there in heaven. My parents are healthy, you know, they have everything they need. I get to live between New York and Miami. You know, that's always been a goal of mine, to be able to go back and forth. You know, I have friends in both places that are really good to me. You know, I have a plethora of connections that I can always go back and forth with. I'm planning this. I think I've made it in the sense that like I'm finally able to make money off of just being myself. You know, I'm working on something really cool for Latin Grammys in Miami, because it's being held in Miami this year in November. That's why I have that call in a few. And I'm working with a manager that I used to work with on the label side, you know, which is an amazing person. I get to work with my friends, basically. You know, we get to make money together. I mean, that to me, I'm getting there. You know, would I like a nice 9 to 5 where I could just chill and not do much? Sure, but I also know I would be bored. But I think that I'm finally getting there and finally giving myself credit where credit is due, that I put in the work and it's coming to fruition, and I get to, you know, live my day to day however I want to, and that to me is success.
I love that, Mel, and I hope you know that we are very proud of you, and that we support you in every way that we can.
Thank you.
We're so grateful for your time today and for sharing your journey and being vulnerable with us and helping other people